Hey, what's up? I'm Chris, and on this episode of the Weekly Show with Jon Stewart, he has Maria Reese on discussing similarities of the Philippines and America going into a dictatorship. One important point I hear is in the year 2014, a turning point in news where the algorithm becomes the predominant way we are served up our news and media. She explains it. She also points to bribery being illegal. Is this acceptable now? A profound question is asked of America. What are we saying now, America? Let's go bribe? Values have shifted, and is this what America wants? Listen to this clip and follow the weekly show by Jon Stewart for the full podcast.
So I think these values that they had, I think they tried, but business money was more important. And what you're seeing is what we saw in the Philippines. It is currying favor from, as he calls himself, the king, because when you do that, look, this is the creation of a kleptocracy. When you do that, when you're only cutting a business deal, when it is only a quid pro quo, a corrupt government is actually easier to deal with, right?
It's transactional. Yeah.
Transactional, which is
Yeah.
actually, and the United States for a long time was not like that, or seemingly had these things in place.
Right. Was not explicitly that. We should be clear. This isn't a black and white. There's always an undercurrent of kleptocracy. There is actually a stream of that is how the world works. And, we should recognize that. This is making it explicit.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, man, this whole ethics thing, that's a real pain in the ass. So let's just go straight. Yeah.
And that, again, was something that President Trump paused, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. And I know this because I ran a CNN bureau.
That blew my mind too, man.
Right? Like, you cannot, if you're an American company, bribe someone. You can't. That's against the law. But that was paused. So what are we saying now, America? Are you saying, yeah, it's okay, go bribe? And the way it was presented is this gets in the way of our competition. But corruption is not competition, right? So I guess, so to go back to what you're saying, I feel like, again, America's values have shifted. And the question Americans have to ask is this the world you want? Is this the world you want your kids to grow up in? But, John, we have to go back. One of the things, and it bothers me because we don't talk enough about this. How did we get to this state? And what role did the tech? We talked about these CEOs. I do think for a while they tried. I think they never wanted to be gatekeepers. And that's where we're going to start, which is in 2014. News organizations were both creating journalism and distributing journalism. And our distribution did not corrupt you, but in 2014, the gatekeepers changed it.
Right. It wasn't algorithmic. It wasn't, your distribution was your distribution. You wrote things, people were drawn to them, but it didn't, there was no thumb on the scale. There was none of those kinds of things.
We all had the same reality, right? You could say they're different opinions, but the facts remained. By 2014, and this is not a coincidence that was the same time that the meta-narrative of that's used to annex Crimea by Russia, and then 8 years later, Putin used to invade Ukraine itself. That meta-narrative was seeded in 2014.
Was that after the Maidan revolution? Is that when it became seeded?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think Putin learned from that. So there are two ways information operations work. You see the meta-narrative, and then the virality is hitting it opportunistically every time, which makes it spread further, right? So, and we have all the data behind this. So we watched history change in the Philippines, and 2014 was the year, right? When Marcos, the dictator, became the greatest leader we've ever known and set the stage for the election of his only son and namesake in 2022. So think about that. 2014, the gatekeepers changed. Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit, but let me make sure you know this chronology.
Yeah, please.
By 2018, which is when they were making money, right? It was all about profit. By 2018, an MIT study said that lies on social media spread 6 times faster. This is 2018, before Elon Musk bought Twitter. It's significantly worse. 6 times faster. So that's the incentive structure. Lies spread 6 times faster. And then our data in the Philippines showed that if you use fear, anger, and hate, it spreads virally. So look at the incentive structure, right?
Right.
And so what did it do? Our technology, artificial intelligence has been around for 70 years or so. It isn't new, but it was how it was used by tech companies, big tech. They essentially hacked our biology, went to the thinking fast part of the way we operate. By changing the way we feel, they changed how we see the world and the way we act, right? When you change the way you act, that goes right to how we vote. So